Great War North. What does this make you think of? Maybe World War I? Maybe the Soviet Union's invasion of Finland? Or maybe the whole thing is just a generalized term for the Vikings? Well, no. First, its name is the Great Northern War, not Great War North, but pretty close. Secondly,
Yeah, I don't have a second. Let's just continue.
Sweden today, a cold, desolate, IKEA-filled wasteland. But it wasn't always like this. It used to be one of the European superpowers. Fancy for IKEA Vikings. Man, I'm gonna make so many IKEA jokes in this video. Anyway, Sweden was a cool superpower. Their military was really well trained, and they were led by their 12th Charles the 12th. So who would challenge such an international superpower? You would have to be some crazy vodka-drinking, bear-taming, foreign nation-assimilating tsardom. Oh hey Russia, just want to say on a quick side note, absolute dictatorships and monarchies act according to their leader, which doesn't always make sense as the country could act completely differently with someone else in power. But anyway, this is not the current Russia. Anything I say about this Russia, in 1700-something, is about it, and just it alone. Not the current day Russia, this Russia. So with that set aside, let's start talking about this other Russia that's not the current one. Russia was doing pretty good. Similar to Sweden, they had a well-trained army, but the main difference being the current king, Peter the Great, had some very powerful cousins. One was the king of Denmark-Norway, and the other was the king of Polish-Lithuania. Funny haha time.
The King of Poland was an absolute genius.
He was also named Augustus II the Strong, but just remember that, okay? However, while Russia was doing alright, their economy was slowing down fast due to the Treaty of Stolbovo. What is Stolbovo and who decided on that name? I really hope that I'm not pronouncing that incorrectly, like the Danube, which is apparently pronounced the Danube, or something like that. Let's just move on. Russia had signed the Treaty of Stolbovo, which made it so that they lost all their land on the Baltic Sea. This meant that they also lost really important trading opportunities with Western or even Central Europe. They also just didn't really like Sweden. They had had a ton of wars in the past, and Russia wanted to show the rest of Europe that they were finally stronger, even though Sweden had been winning most of them. So with that, Russia and their allies declared war. Let's start with Denmark-Norway. They started an invasion of Sweden. However, Sweden also started an attack on them. Sweden sent their fleet and raided Copenhagen, which, for those not geographically advanced as I am, is the capital of Denmark. They also used their fleet to land their armies so that they could raid even more of Copenhagen. Around this time, a fleet of British and Dutch ships showed up with Sweden. Now at this point, Britain and the Netherlands were the most powerful naval forces on the planet. Probably. I know Spain had their whole armada thing, but I'm not sure when that was. Also, I know Germany was also making a navy. Just, the Britain and the Netherlands were very powerful. So when the dude you're fighting shows up with some of the most powerful forces known to man, historical Britain's want for more land, it tends to be pretty upsetting. Not surprisingly, Denmark-Norway signed a peace treaty with Sweden. Next was Poland. Poland was pretty simple. They had an impressive amount of resistance to Sweden, so much that Sweden had to invade extremely large amounts of Poland's land in order to finally get them to surrender. But once they did, they had Augustus II deposed and replaced with a Swedish ally, although he did get to keep some of the land. While Sweden was taking all of Poland, Russia had been busy. They had invaded Ingria, which was like fucking over here in the fucking Baltic. Peter the Great, Russia for those of you who forgot, had also made plans to revamp the army to make it cool and modern and very modern yep, that. Fun fact alert time. The city of the city of St. Petersburg was actually just a fort that was used during this war. Alright, fun fact time over. That was it. Sweden tried to raid this area, however Peter had fortified it with forts, and the invasions ended up being incredibly ineffective, with, during one raid, 1/3 of the Swedish army dying. Since all their attacks had been completely annihilated, they instead blockaded St. Petersburg, keeping important things from getting to it, like food. Sweden decided to feed a fed horse, or wait, oh yeah, that was the PETA thing. I mean, beat a dead horse and invade Ingria. They started out pretty well, and managed to cross the Neva, which was like some important river crossing or something, but they met heavy attacks after that. They went to Finland for some reason or another, but ran out of supplies. They had to be evacuated, but didn't have enough room for their horses. So, what would you do if you didn't have enough room for the horses? You'd let them go, right? If you said anything other than let them go, you're probably a masochist. And also correct. Sweden killed around 5,000 horses, meaning that pretty much anything that happened in Finland would be extremely difficult for Sweden to get to in time. Russia had finished their super cool, super modern army plans, and had updated the military accordingly. They, however, didn't really want to continue fighting, because war was getting expensive, so they sent a peace offer that had them give up all their occupied territory except for Ingria and St. Petersburg. Sweden declined, and instead invaded Russia during winter. Alright kids, this is where that famous phrase comes from. Don't invade Russia during winter. Along with, a lot of other wars, this invasion went pretty poorly, to say the least. Charles, Sweden, got a large army and invaded Russia, with the optimistic objective of Moscow. However, they soon experienced one of the worst winters in European history, the winter of 1708 for those interested, and had large amounts of their supplies either used up or lost. Peter was also burning farmland so that Charles couldn't get any food from those.
So Sweden was pretty much screwed.
However, things got even worse for old Chuck, or old Chucker Jamerson, or Charles Mark Zuckerberg. Yep, as his main army went to go wait for help and reinforcements in Ukraine, a second army, with those reinforcements and supplies, was discovered and annihilated by Peter, meaning no help at all was coming for Charles. Peter attacked Charles and absolutely I've used the word annihilate too much. Let's go with disintegrated. Disintegrated the army he was leading. Charles did, however, manage to escape along with a few survivors to the Ottoman Empire. Any Swedish forces that were still in Ukraine, however, surrendered, and almost Sweden's entire army was gone just like that.
Well, told you this wasn't gonna go well for Sweden.
Denmark and Poland rejoined in the war. Wait, I thought you said Augustus, ex-king of Poland, for those of you not paying enough attention, was deposed, and the new king was with Sweden. Well, yeah, but through some black magic fuckery, somehow,
This incredibly wrinkly-brained King Augustus II
managed to, through politics, put himself back on the throne. I don't know why. I just find that hilarious. It's the whole reason I mentioned his name, too. The script didn't even mention his name until I wanted to have that single line. Anyway, Charles was in the Ottoman Empire, and lightly suggested that they should save Sweden from certain doom. However, Russia wasn't happy with this, and demanded that the Ottomans give them Charles. The Ottomans said no, obviously. Why would they give him Charles? Russia invaded the Ottomans, but quickly had their armies surrounded. Peter then negotiated with them to allow them to retreat. Basically, Russia had to give them a bit of land and promised to let Charles return to Sweden, since the Ottomans wanted Charles to leave. Now, Charles interpreted this as, oh, the Ottomans love me and hate Russia now, let's call them to war, when it was more actually,
Why can't these weirdos leave us alone? Why aren't we colonizing America right now? Where's Waldo? What does the fox say?
So when Charles, instead of going home, stayed and asked the Ottomans to join the war, they had him imprisoned and forced to not leave a single city while in Ottoman territory, or just go home. So Charles decided it was time to go home. During this, Russia was invading Sweden quite a lot, but since Sweden barely even had enough dudes to make poor defenses, they couldn't really spare very many dudes for, attacks on Russia. So Russia decided to launch a few invasions, mainly Finland. They were doing great. Sweden's armies knew that there were too many Russians, so instead of fighting, they just retreated and lit everything on fire.
Once Russia got too far into Finland,
they ran into supply chain issues and had to go back. Yeah, that's right, you communist pigs. Flee back to Russia. Carl? Yeah, dude? I was just about to finish my insult. Yeah, I got that, but they're not communist yet. Communism won't even be invented for almost 80 years. Yeah, but I bet when it is invented, Russia will be the first to adopt it. Alright, fair. Hey, Eric? Yeah? We just go from knowing the future to assuming the future in the same conversation? Yeah, Chuck. Or Charles, or... Fuck, I forget his name. Yeah, anyway, Russia went back to Russia, and Peter decided that in the future, they would stay near the coast where it was easier to supply. Upon seeing Russia was getting ready for an even bigger attack, a Swedish general called for reinforcements. However, due to that whole killing 5,000 horses thing, the message was a bit late, like, really late. Basically, Russia had shown up to Helsinki and tried to make landings. However, Sweden had managed to push them back and prevented them from getting off their boats. So, Russia went a bit further away and landed their armies there, then walked to Helsinki. Sweden had realized this and lit ablaze the entire city and retreated. After this, Russia basically just occupied Finland. Charles finally came home, Sweden's brave king, their leader. He'll surely bring this crumbling war back from the brink. So, he might have lost more land in the Baltic, and in a failed siege in Norway was killed. Rest in peace, Charles. We'll never forget that you took down both Denmark and Poland really quick, which, I mean, that actually was kind of impressive. And maybe could have even invaded Russia successfully in a different universe. Yeah, so now his sister took charge, but I'm just gonna skip to the end here. After this, Sweden is mostly kicked out of anywhere except Scandinavia. They stopped being a European superpower, and Russia takes their place. Well, thanks for watching, and I suppose it's the closest you're gonna get to a Christmas video, so Merry Christmas.